Folks, welcome to a special edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. It is my honor to welcome in a stalwart of West Coast jazz, Gene Stone. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you.
Can I ask you, were you somebody who practiced quite a bit?
Yeah.
I mean, did you always love that, or did it take a long time to grow into that?
That's an interesting idea. I'd say I probably always loved it, but I also had to grow into that too.
You know, not totally understanding the value. I guess the idea. Why is it so important? In order to play transcendent music, you have to know the rudiments of the instrument. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Talk about that. The foundation that you need, that you got.
Well, okay. Let me kind of give you a brief history of all of this. When I first started to play in 1956, out on the West Coast, as far as drumming, there was something popular called the finger bounce method, which was what was taught. But actually, it was a kind of an illusion. I mean, that's what it looked like, but that wasn't really how you gain control of the drums. I went into the Air Force in 1956, and I was in some of the bands there, until I got out in 1960, doing that. When I got back out and got into the scene in L.A., I ran into Freddie Gruber, and he kind of straightened me out on how things were supposed to be. I studied with him for about a year and a half. He was like best friends with Buddy Rich and our great drummers, Philly Joe and I. He grew up in the environment with all those guys.
Wow.
And was back there playing during that time. So he really knew the inside out of all of that. But he taught a lot of us guys, really great, including Bill Goodwin, a guy that played with Phil Woods, and a lot of other guys.
You hung with Bill Goodwin. He was there at that time.
Yeah, back in the '60s, sure.
Yeah, he was playing with Jefferson Airplane at that time too, I think.
I never did.
With Spencer Dryden. No, Bill Goodwin did.
Oh yeah, well he probably did. He really cut a great career for himself. When I came out in 1960, he was just kind of a beginner. He didn't sound too good. Or 1957. Then I came back out in 1960. He just blew me away. He just went straight ahead from there. He went on to New York and did all the things he did. And we're still friends. And amazing drummer.
That's fantastic.
Getting back to Freddie Gruber.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the method he teaches is what's called the natural method. It's the method Buddy Rich used. But he never studied with anybody. He learned everything himself since he was a kid as a drummer. At the age of 4 years old, he was trapped to the drum wonder. So he just did whatever worked. He developed it to such a fine degree that nobody can really copy that. But still, you can learn things, about the natural method. So actually, there's no correct, absolute right way to do anything. Whatever works, it works.
Right.
If it works, it works.
Right.
But there are certain things that make it easier to get it out. So he taught, wrist turns and, all kinds of different control. And I spent, right up until today, continuing to develop the things that he taught me, which was, a whole lot. You need control everywhere. The arms, the fingers, the wrists, turns, the snaps, the curves, the ins and outs, the combinations, the single components, all that different stuff. And he had also told me when I was studying with him that, Max Roach had played on pillows for a while, so I did that for about 8 years until I developed so much technique on it, I had to quit doing it on the pillow because, it was straining my tendons too much. I then switched to the practice pad and then later on switched to doing it on a set of drums, It takes a long time to develop a concept, to where you can actually deliver a drum solo that says something, believe it or not.
Well, no, I can't even. I think about that as a non-musician, like to do just a solo. But what is it?
Yeah.
What are you saying? When do you have something to say? I think that
you're playing the composition, you're playing the melody when you take a solo, you're expressing the same thing on the drums that's being played in the music. So you follow the form of the tune. I think a lot of guys don't. They don't think about it. And they don't do that. They just play a solo, and they go to the end of it, and then they got to start all over again. So you kind of like follow the composition of what you're doing, what you're playing, and enhance it and compliment the players when you're playing with them, help them do what they want to do, stuff like that. And it takes time to develop that, and it's not easy, to play a drum solo that's coherent and actually says something when you're doing it, and it's different. It's not the same thing every time either. When you're able to, that's what to strive for, it's the original and not repetitious necessarily unless it's for a certain reason,
Did you get a chance to play with like Alu Raka, like any of the Indian drummers?
No, but I've listened to them.
Tell me a little bit about, after, or what do you think your first steady gig was?
My first steady gig was Don Randy Trio. I was his first drummer.
Oh my God, must have been cooking, man.
Oh yeah, well I met him at a high school party, in 1956. Before I went in the Air Force, I did a few little gigs with him, then I went in the Air Force. When I got back out, he was working at a place called the Regency, and he had John Quater on drums and Hersh Hamill on bass. And so Don got hired to play at the Losers Club on the Sunset Strip, but Hersh and John wanted to stay at the Regency, so they did. So then I rejoined the band, and we did 16 months at the Losers Club, 6 nights a week, from 9 to 2.
Oh,
and that was a hell of a good experience. So that's where my roots really came from, as more of like a small group player, because I did with Don so much, And then I wanted to do other things, so I went out into the jazz scene at large, and I recorded with Claire Fisher, Don Ellis, and Priscilla Shea Quintet, and I kind of went on a hiatus for a lot of years because I married kids and all that stuff. And after my kids grew up, I was able to seriously take on trying to get back into music again.
No, I think it's... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. During the years in between, I did kind of, offbeat gigs and stuff like that, but nothing really great. And so finally, when I got back into it, of course, music all changes and everything, so you have to get back in the best way you can. So I figured the best way to get back in was just be able to play anything, and be able to make the audience enjoy it, and then you got a chance.
Well, no, but I mean, what's really cool is, the fact is that, before you took on fatherhood and raising your family, you really tapped into the West Coast jazzers. Claire Fisher, you said
Absolutely.
that you set the bar real high. Were you playing a lot of like Latin jazz too?
Some. I had to learn some of that the hard way.
How'd that happen?
Well, I got hired by a band in like 1983 called Coco Loco. And I had very, very little experience with playing any kind of Latin jazz, and they ate me alive. I was in that group with Carmelo Garcia and...
Are you kidding me? I love that cat, dude.
The Bollies and Ed Jones on conga, and Vladimir something on piano, and Vibes and bass. Oh, man, what a cooking scene. That's the wildest music in the world, man. It runs like a rushing river that just keeps picking up momentum. I think the best description I ever saw of it was I saw a painting of a conga player playing the congas with a white fire under his hands. So after I lasted about 2 weeks, I went and I studied congas for about 7 years so I could try to understand it. So finally I got a kind of a handle on Latin music, and to where I can actually do it. I'm not doing congas much these days because it flattens out your fingers, so I kind of went back to the drums. But every once in a while, pull them out and get into it, or go sit in with a group, play some congas and stuff. That's entirely different kind of development for a drummer because playing drums, travels on time study, whereas conga is pure, wild, evolving rhythm, where it just starts and builds heat as you go along. And you also, employ the use of your forearms a lot, your hands, so it makes you much stronger as a drummer too, when you're playing the drums. So that's another side benefit of doing that.
No, this is spot on. No, but I'm saying like with Randy, like, or with Fisher, they were incorporating some like some Afro-Cuban bossa rhythms during the time. During the time that you played with them. It seemed like there were Congo players playing at that time in the West, like Francisco Aguabella or something like that.
Oh, Claire Fisher, unbeknownst to me before I recorded with him, had been working with Cal Jader for a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and he wanted to come out and play music on his own. Okay, I got attracted away from Don Randy because I heard the music of Charlie Mingus and Ornette Coleman and those guys, and I wanted to go in that direction. And that was how I ended up with Claire Fisher and Gary Peacock. You know,
well, you're going out.
Huh?
You were out. You're going outside.
Yeah. So, as it happened, after I left Don, I went to the manhole, and Bud Shank was playing. I asked him to let me sit in, and he did. And so then the next thing I know, Gary Peacock hit on me to do this recording with Claire Fisher. So we got together, and we just ran over the heads of the tunes. You know, we saved everything for the record date. And then maybe we would jam a blues. So that day we went in to do the recording. I never suspected at that time that thing would have a life of its own, and it's still alive today. There has never been anywhere in the world at any time that somebody hasn't come up and talked to me about that recording. First time out with Claire Fisher and me and Gary Peacock, it really is great.
My God, I mean,
I thought the one I did with Don Ellis was going to do it.
Well, I'm going to.
But it didn't.
This is, if it's called First Time Out?
Yeah, it's called First Time Out.
What label was it on?
It was on Pacific Jazz. It's now, I think, being distributed by, who is it?
No, I collect vinyl only. I mean, this is Dick Bach was fully in command of this Gene Stone Claire Fisher session. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he was there. I know him, sure.
This is wild, man. So, but I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, that was 1960. What year was
that?
For what year was that? Did that album come out?
Okay, that came out about 1962.
There it is, man. First Time Out is a debut album by Claire Fisher, recorded and released 1962.
Yeah, that was his first one under his own name.
Oh my God, this is Claire Fisher, Gary Peacock, and Gene Stone on traps. This is, except one track, Nigerian Walk has Ed Shaughnessy on it.
On what?
No, on one track.
Oh yeah, Ed Shaughnessy's tune. Yeah, Nigerian Waltz. Yeah.
God, that's crazy because I just found this Jimmy Smith album called Bash, and Ed Shaughnessy's playing drums on that. I'm like, this. That's what what I love is that I mean, dude, this is absolutely. This is blowing my mind. You were. I mean, this is Ornette Coleman time. This is Gary Peacock. You were right in there.
That's true. The reason we came together in that group, because I had been playing with Don for like 16 nights, six nights a week, and we played pretty much the same material every night. It worked. Don's a huge success, and he knows what he was doing. He was great.
Yeah, right.
But I wanted, when I heard that album, Charles Mingus plays Charles Mingus,
Right.
I had been studying with Freddie all that time. My routine was something like get up in the morning, start practicing till about 6, rest, go to the gig, come back from the gig, 2 o'clock in the morning, sit on the drums, practice some more, go to sleep, start the same thing over again the next day. So I was really into that, so, that music appealed to me because they were speaking a language back and forth with the music, they were talking to each other. And I wanted to do that. And then I listened to a friend of mine named Dave Hayward that lived at the bottom of Topanga Canyon. I was living up in there. That was really into Ornette. So I used to go down and play with him. One night he had Don Cherry over there and Steve Upstetter and him and the bass player, I think, Jim Crutcher. And we played, some of Don Cherry's tunes and stuff. And, it was really nice, man. And so that's what kind of drew me into that situation,
I mean, can I ask?
Ellis came out.
Yeah. No, I want to.
Okay.
I'm just. Why'd you walk away, man?
Huh?
Why did you walk away? Why did you? I mean,
I wanted to play that kind of music. I didn't want to keep. I wanted to get out into the jazz scene and play that. You know, I wanted to play like those guys. So I got to know Roland Kurtz. I did a few gigs with him, you know, and you know, stuff like that. I recorded with Don Ellis, because Don Ellis came to town. There used to be a Sunday morning jam session at a place called the Soul Brothers House of Jazz in Hollywood.
Oh, this is so...
So I went there, and Don was playing there that morning. You know, so I asked if I could sit in with him. He let me sit in, and I told him I liked the music. I wanted to do it for the essence of it. The next thing I knew, I got a call that Don wanted me to do this recording with him. And so he had me come out to his house and play with him, just me and him. And he set up the recording, so he had two drummers on there because...
What's the name of the album?
It's called Essence.
Oh, Gene Stone is on... All right, so you went out to his house, and tell me what happened.
Okay, then we played some tunes together. He listened to me. He said to me, "You know what? You got big ears." I said, "Yeah." So then I got called for the date. Now, he had been working at the Lighthouse with Nick Martinez on drums.
Sure.
Great drummer.
Sure, I remember that guy. I know that guy.
Okay, so we were both on the recording. You know, so he did a couple tunes, I did a couple tunes, then we did a couple tune double drum with Don. Leonard Feather was in there that day when we were doing the recording, and we started to do the double drum thing. He stood up in his seat, you know, and listened to us. So, you know, Don said on that recording, yeah, he stretched out. He did all the stuff he did before he started the big band and the Hindustani Jazz Quartet and all that with this recording. And he said on there, there is nothing in the universe that is not the rightful working material of the artist. And he went ahead and did it on it. He did some pretty strange stuff on the recording. Now, these have all been re-released under Japanese labels.
Of course. No. I mean, but you have to understand, I spend my days... I'm buying vinyl. I'm finding LPs in thrift stores. I'm finding Jimmy Reed on Victor Feldman on VJ. You know, I'm just doing every. Yeah. I'm looking for that authenticity, Gene, and I mean, but
I got to work with Victor once.
Like Keltner was. I mean, that dude. He's like he didn't tell me anything about Gene Stone, man. He's like, go talk to Stone, and to know that. To this is like the most sophisticated. I don't think I can say this honestly as somebody who's pretty much chronicled the 60s and 70s. I don't think we've seen a more explosive, progressive time in jazz than the time that you played in.
That's very true.
I think. After that, this sense of individuality, yet playing within the framework of the team, constantly listening, communicating, getting up, doing the same thing every day was like it was like a drug. I mean, it was, you know, and there's very little music is. Most of it's processed, most of it's premeditated, most of it's pretty calculated, and that was not. Did you grow up in Southern California too? I mean, you just walked into the scene.
Well, okay. Now, when I started, Shelly Manne was my first idol.
Right.
So he used to play at a place called Tiffany Club. And every weekend I would be there, digging him and digging that band. I mean, you know, I lived, ate, and breathed Shelly Manne. Until I got out of the Air Force. You know, then he was kind of overshadowed that time. While I was in the Air Force, I heard Elvin Jones first time. Probably before a lot of other people ever did. And, you know, there's an album called Dial JJ5 with JJ Johnson.
Right.
And that is the distinctive Elvin Jones, you know, before he developed all the style he did after that with Coltrane, where he was playing on there in a more kind of advanced way than any other guy out there. And so from then on, it was those two guys, man, you know, and I made friends with Elvin, and, you know, and over the years we stayed friends, and I watched everything he did. I watched him develop that style he did when he came to LA with Coltrane. I hung out with him for a while. But Shelly, you know, I had every one of his recordings, you know, the precision and the way he did things. And at that time, on the West Coast, there was a lot of jazz experimentation going on, you know, with Jim Jufrey and Shelly. And, you know, the whole West Coast thing was transforming, you know, more or less standard tunes into jazz and doing creative things with sounds and things like that. So, you know, naturally I was a part of that. And that was the environment I grew up in. Yeah.
Can you talk more about where that mindset came from, like that new music of the West? I've done that. To me, what you just described there about the turning tunes into jazz tunes, actually creating.
Hold on, I'm getting a call on a cell phone.
Yeah, take it. Do you want to take it?
Don't go away. Let me see what it is.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? 2 gigs on the same day. What a drag.
I mean, I know people that are in worse shape. Can you talk about playing with Gary Peacock, Paul Bley, and these guys?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I want you to just talk about this progressive movement of music. What were they like in lay terms? What were you guys doing to stretch the music that far?
To be original, to not be conventional, to do what nobody else is doing, to explore freedom. That's pretty much it. That's what those recordings were about.
Exploring freedom. I mean, yeah. You might as well just emblazon that on my forehead. I mean, was that the most free?
Freedom of creativity. In other words, freedom of improvisation. But yet know what you're doing, not be jiving at it. There was a lot of people that came out and played a lot of strange stuff that it was just pure jive, but it wasn't that. It was you had real musicians doing really creative things and with the ability to do it. That was why the recording came out so great. You want to do it with Claire Fisher? It's never been forgotten over the years. All over
Dude,
the world.
I've never seen that album in my life on vinyl. That's a hard one to find.
It was on vinyl. It was on Pacific Jazz.
No, it's hard to find. It's very scarce. And the Don Ellis one, you see, once he got into that Liberation Orchestra, the 11/9. Did you hang with the 11/9/13? Well, you must have, because you and Elvin were tight.
No. This was all before all that. When he developed a big band, he called out. He called me. But I was kind of like not doing anything at that time, and he wanted to have 3 drummers in the band instead of 2. I didn't want to do it, so I didn't do it.
Did you play with Scotty LaFaro at all?
He did all the things he did,
Yeah. Did you play with Scotty LaFaro?
What's that?
Did you play with Scott LaFaro at all?
No, never did.
Yeah, no. I was going to say, did you use the Union at all, or you basically just got connected to? Like, how did you get your first record?
Back then it was good. Back then you could walk out the door and throw up and get a gig. In those days it was very, very easy to get work. And with the Union, the Union is great for people that are really making it and making a lot of money and everything. For guys like us, they're just gigging around town. The Union didn't do a hell of a lot. I mean, I was a member, but they had the credit union. You could do that. They had the union directory. Later on, they had internet where you could post yourself, but they didn't really do much for you. I mean, in that way. I mean, they had union benefits, but as far as getting you work and stuff, that was few and far between. Usually when you did get those kind of gigs, you had to wait a long time to get paid and things like that. I didn't get a lot of those. I was mostly trying to play jazz. And then, of course, I was gone in the Air Force for a while. When I got out of the Air Force, it was easy to get gigs. You could get them anywhere. It was so simple. There was jazz going on 24 hours a day in the city. You work at night from 9 to 2, 2 o'clock in the morning. There was a 2 to 6 jam session. 6 o'clock in the morning Sundays, 6 o'clock to 12 jam sessions. Somewhere else it was 12 to 4, somewhere else 4 to 8, so on. So there was all kinds of stuff going on at that time. You didn't really need the union for that purpose. Not really.
When can you talk about how you and Elvin stayed in touch? I mean, when he would come into, did he live on?
Well, when he would come to town, yeah.
Yeah, like what would you guys do? Like you guys get together and just bat and just.
I'd go to his room, we'd hang out, we'd talk, we'd screw around. I'd go to his gigs, see him play, things like that. He made a recording with Jimmy Woods called Conflict, and I was there in the studio with him while he was doing it, and we were hanging out, and when it was over, Mel Lewis came and picked him up, took him back to the hotel. Some chick he picked up the night before he left her at the record studio.
I love these cats, man. These guys, oh man. So I mean, but I guess, Gene, what if you don't? I wanted to ask you, why did you stop working? Well, why did you pursue? What did you pursue other than? It seemed like music was really, it was trending very strong for you.
Well, I made some pretty stupid mistakes. You know, made a couple of wrong moves. It didn't have anything to do with drugs or anything. Just you know, too many people's wives wanted to make it with me. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Screwed up my marriage. You know, it put me in a big bad scene, man. I didn't crawl out of it for a lot of years. You know, so during that time, I just like worked day gigs and stuff like that. Went out, try to find, you know, how to, you know. So finally, I mean, I spent a lot of insane, I mean, truly dark, insane kind of years, you know, between the end of 1963, you know, right up until about, I don't know, 1967, when a piano player, Kent Glenn, that knew me, really, really great piano player.
Are you kidding me? Ken Glenn, I'm obsessed, and Sam Most, too. I'm obsessed with those.
Sam Most, yeah, that's, oh, did you have that recording with me and him and Sam and Stephanie Haynes?
What album is that?
It's called The Only Music, where see, Kent was very instrumental in bringing me back into music.
Can you explain how he said, Kent Glenn, I need you to tell me how, part of my show is about inspiration, how did he get you back into music?
By being inspiring and showing the strength and faith that he had, you know, you know, by doing that and constantly involving me in musical situations, even though I didn't want to go. Finally, in 1974, when they opened up the Studio Jazz Cafe in Balboa, he called me to work the gig, and I declined it. And then I felt like the guy who just jumped off the bridge and made a big mistake. You know, so they hired Paul Kleibick, and he was great. And then they had the Sunday afternoon session every Sunday, so I started going out there for the sessions. And then Kent saw, you know, my father came out to see me from the East Coast, and he saw me play, and that's what finally tripped the cord in me to go ahead and try again. So then from like 1974 right up to today is when I started woodshedding, you know, and developing all the technique you hear. Up until then, I didn't have that much, you know, and so that's how he did it. So he just kind of pulled me along, and then I worked with him and Stephanie at Laguna Beach for free, you know, to get back, to get reacclimatized to being a musician again, being on the stand. That was a very good experience for me. And so for many years, I played with Kent, you know, in different situations and gigs that he had. And I did a recording with him in 1980 called Vintage Stone Jazz, which is actually out there. It's under Rhombus Records. I did another one in 1996 with him called Tenor Combustion, when we put together that same band. This all started at a place called the Cascades in Belmont Shores in 1960, where I used to, when I got off the gig from dawn, you know, I'd sleep and get up in the morning and go out to that session in the morning. That's where I met all these guys, Kent and Vince Wallace and Luciati and so many great people, even Jack Sheldon. And, you know.
What about like Nick Ciroli was out there?
Huh?
Was Nick Ciroli out there?
Who? Victor?
Nick Ciroli.
I don't think I knew him.
Whatever. This is. What about Emil Richards? You cross paths with Emil?
I did, yeah. I worked with Shorty Rogers a couple times with Emil Richards on the band.
You work with so let's wait. Glenn gets you reacclimated 67, 68, but you said you didn't start woodshedding until 74?
Yeah, because I more or less gave up, man. I was trying to, you know, raise a family. I was working in factories and doing all kinds of dumb day gigs, parking attendant, this, that, everything.
Right.
You know, I went out on the road with Gabo Zabo for 4 days, and when I came back, I just kind of threw in the towel for a while. You know, I just worked as a parking attendant for about 10 years, and then, you know, did other things. And so I was more or less just doing that. You know, and I was in the process of being divorced and, you know, taking care of my kids, going out on weekends, you know, working day gigs. So I didn't really have a big interest in trying to do anything musically. I had my drums in the closet. I'd take them out about every 6 months and putz around with them for about 20 minutes and put them back. And Kent kept getting me into these things, and I kept turning them down sometimes and doing them sometimes. But then when my father finally came out, you know, I didn't live with my father all my life. He was a classical musician. He was in New York. My parents were divorced. And so I didn't see him much in my life. But he came out at that time, you know, and saw me play out at the Studio Cafe. And that sort of motivated me to go ahead and get started again with it. So that's kind of what happened. And so I joined Kent's band in 1966. He had a band up in Haight-Ashbury called at a club called Haight Levels, the Kent Glen Quintet. So I went up there and did it for a while, for about 4 weeks, and then my wife came up there, and I went back home with her, and that's when I just more or less put it all aside. So he wouldn't give up on me. He came back in 1970 and kept, driving me. So he got me on a record date in 1976 with Putter Smith called Lost and Found, and that was kind of my comeback into the vinyl world.
Hold on. Wait, with Putter?
Yeah, with Putter Smith.
Oh, my. I've interviewed Putter like 3... I've done 2 interviews with Putter. I love that man, dude.
Isn't he great? I've known him since 1960.
Well, I'm going to ask you about a cat right now. Tell me about the skipper, Henry Franklin.
Yeah, I got to work with him several times, too.
When did you first meet him?
Well, he was hanging out with Ken Glenn, that's when I first met him. But, later on, I gigged with him out at the Sullivan Steakhouse in Palm Desert. I was out there for 9 years playing with Joe Rattiri, and, I had a wonderful time playing out there, and Henry was on the gigs sometimes. I got to work with him out there, and I got to work with him a few other times. I mean, just fabulous guy, wonderful, fantastic bass player. Wonderful, beautiful cat.
Yeah, I went to visit. I stayed with Skip a couple times, and he always says good things about you. I told him I was going to be talking to you, and
yeah, I love the guy. I love him.
He's just the community down there is it's a special community. And there's a lot of people that have, like you said before, there's a difference between wanking it and then being able to have serious jazz chops and play outside music. I mean, there's Chico Hamilton said there's a fine line between noise and music, and it's I mean,
well, music, the kind of music we were playing, all got assimilated into the mainstream and into the rock and everything else. So that stuff's not really happening anymore, except the true artists that started it. Like Ornette and Don Cherry, and unfortunately, he's gone now, but I went to see him when he came to L.A., and George Russell, and, the avant-garde guys who came along are pretty great, Steve Gadd, and what's his name, Billy Cobham, and there's so many guys that moved out in so many other areas, all electronic drumming and everything. Boy, you got enough on your hands just playing the acoustic drums, So, but some of these guys are pretty fabulous. Some of them can walk in both worlds, and some of them can't. Some of them are really great at what they're doing, but when it comes to jazz, they don't have any true understanding of it, but some do. There's a few drummers out there that do. Dave Weckl is one of them, and I think Vinnie Colaiute's another one, and Neil Peart, and some of those guys, I got a guy named David Hunt, fabulous drummer, he can walk in both worlds really great. And I really love guys like that. There's a young guy out here called Randy Sinisi that's fabulous too, man. He's like that. He's playing with Don Randy now.
Right,
David Hunt playing with Randy in 1985. That's when I met him. We got to hang out a few times out here for a couple months, together. He's a fabulous drummer. He can play just anything, anywhere, anytime, with any kind of band. He's really, really great, really tasty. I love him.
Yeah, I love the guys, the masters of all trades, the fluid kind of thing where you can just fit into to all different settings.
Yeah.
But what will be the next bridge? I mean, we live in an electronica world now. We don't live in that.
I'm not going there. No, I'm old school.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is, how do we get to that next sort of? It's a state of consciousness. That's why the music went where it went. I mean, it was an open-mindedness. That's right. That part that reflects society as well. And so, I don't know how we're going to have an expansion of music unless there's a stream of consciousness kind of thing. Maybe just people need to start eating acid again.
I'll tell you this. Jazz is not going to die. They're playing it all the time. Young people are picking up on it too. You know, so it's not going away. You know, and neither is the great guys in it. You know, Miles and all the cats. That's gonna last as long as Mozart and everything else out there. It's not going away. So what I've noticed about these guys is they go ahead and they explore it out to as far as they can go. We all do that. We all did that. When they get to the end of it, and there's nowhere else to go, then they loop back to learn where it came from. Okay? So they go back into Dixieland, and they go back through swing, and they go back through jazz, you know, try to get an understanding of it. Because you're not complete without that. You know, I don't care how far avant-garde. I mean, I go and I listen to these guys sometimes. They're absolutely fabulous. You know, I've been hanging out with Don a lot lately since the 80s. You know, I go into the club. He only plays once or twice a month, so I go in and catch his group. But occasionally I'll see another group in there, you know. These guys are fantastic. They take it, and after about one or two tunes, I've heard it. I don't want to hear it anymore. It doesn't turn me on anymore like the old guys, like Art Blakey and Billy Joe and Max Roach and Shelley and Buddy and Louie and, you know, all those great guys out there, and Elvin and Specs Wright and, you know, Baby Dodds and Sid Catlett. All those are the cats that do it for me, man. Chick Webb. I never get tired of listening to that or them. You know, never.
But part of it.
Out here, fabulous drummer, you know.
How much of it has to do with the fact that all those guys you mentioned, aside from being great drummers, they really were great entertainers too. I mean, they really drew you in. I find today, you know, if you're just up there playing music after two tunes, you check out, right? It's just nothing.
Yeah, I recognize, I respect these guys.
Yeah.
I recognize how awesome they are.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I see how truly great they are. But that just isn't me. I mean, I dig it for a while, you know, but pretty soon it's pretty much the same thing over and over again. You know, they're out there playing all that moon music and shit and some of the electronic stuff and everything else. And, yeah, it's really nice. It's like watching a Picasso painting unfold or something, you know. I mean, it's terrific. But after a while, I mean, it doesn't do much for me because I like to swing. You know,
dude, I love Gene Stone, man. I mean, this is could you pretty much have done? What was your IQ at?
I don't know how to answer that one. I'll just answer it this way.
Yeah.
I started out going into avant-garde, okay? By the time I wanted to come back, I saw it all be assimilated. I'm not going to make any great strides doing that.
Right.
So I had to come back with the same guys, you know, that I'd known from the Cascades, you know, the hard-swinging mainstream jazz, you know. And I just did a new recording, which is a tribute to Vince Wallace. He passed away in 2011, the end of it, or 2012. And I've been playing one of my grooves all my life since I've been playing jazz since 1960. And I used to go up to Oakland once a month to work with him at a place called Cafe Van Cleef from 2001 to 2012 when he passed away. And I've done several recordings with him on my own. You know, one called Vintage Stone Jazz and Tenor Combustion, and I did another one called Vince Wallace Live on the Planet Earth, 2001. I did another one live at Cafe Van Cleef, 2006, called Being There. And 2007, we did a tribute to Kent Glenn after he passed away. We played 10 of his originals, and then I did a recording just Mother's Day of last year, dedicated to Vince Wallace, where we played 10 of my favorite of his originals. I used, I don't know if you know these guys, Chuck Manning on tenor and Doug Webb on tenor. And
sure.
Chris Amberger on bass and Rhonda Gianelli on piano and Sal Marquez on trumpet, myself on drums. Now, that's all barcoded and ready to go, but I haven't figured out how to distribute it yet. But, you know, I might be able to get you a copy if you wanted it, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got to get my hands on this early Stone stuff, this Ellis, this is intoxicating, this Claire Fisher stuff.
You can get that. You can get it. It's re-released on Japanese CD.
Were those the only? What other albums did you do prior to this prior to like 63, 64 when you took some time off? Were those the only two albums?
Well, there wasn't much. There was those three: Don Randy, Claire Fisher, Don Ellis, and then another one, the Prince Lachey Quintet, with Sonny Simmons and Prince Lachey, Gary Peacock, and two bass players, Mark Butler on bass and me on drums.
Wait. What was the name of the Don Randy album?
Feeling Like Blues.
Feeling Like Blues?
Yeah, you can get all of those on Amazon.
No, I only won't buy it on. There it is. You played trio. This is just mind-boggling. Yeah, there's Amazon. Feeling like Blues.
Yeah.
World Pacific 1960. Who's playing bass on this? Herschel Hamill. Hershey Hamill.
Hershey Hamill, yeah.
Gene Stone.
There was one recording that was put on that I didn't know about. When I was stationed in Iceland, from 1958 to 1960, there was a jam session in town every week, with the Icelandic musicians, a place called Hammerlift. And I used to go there every Saturday, and sit in. And one Saturday, Frederick Goulda came to town, and he was playing at the session. So we had all these great Icelandic players, Arnie Ailson on bass, John Paul Bjarnason on guitar, I forget, Gunnar Amslev on tenor, famous Danish tenor player, and me on drums. And they recorded those tunes, two tunes I played with Frederick Gould. I never knew about it until 1984 when John Paul came to America, and we hooked up and had a lot of adventures together. I did a recording with him called Laguna Dreams, and it hasn't been published, and he gave me a copy of this recording about the life of Gunnar Amslev, famous tenor player in that part of the world, from like the 40s up until he was gone, and I was on that one, two tunes with those guys, and I never knew about that, and I got that CD, or I have it now, I first got that in vinyl in the 80s, and I got it in CD now. So that was actually the first one I was ever on, and I never knew about it.
And then this Prince Lasha quintet.
Prince Lachey.
Prince. Can you explain?
Yeah.
I am very unfamiliar with that quintet and that name.
Okay, we were trying to go in that direction, right? And here come these two guys along playing plastic horn. Sonny's playing plastic saxophone, right? And Prince Lachey is playing clarinet and flute. We never really knew what they played like, because we would get together and just run through the tunes and never really jam or anything. So we never knew how they played until we got into the studio that day. And it came out completely different than what we thought it was going to be. So you really have to hear it to hear what it is.
Well, how would you describe what it is? I mean, it's just, this is absolutely...
I don't know what to tell you. It's all their own tunes, so it was original music,
Right.
And there was a couple of free things in there that were totally free. A couple things like that. And then we had the double bass with no piano, and so that was similar in structure to, Ornette's band and stuff like that. So a lot of good tunes on there, and it's pretty good. People like it. You can see an interview with Sonny Simmons on YouTube. We're going to tell you all about himself, how he went to New York and hooked up and stayed with Sonny Rollins, and how John Coltrane used to call Sonny every day at 1 o'clock, and they talked for 3 hours every day. Yeah, you might want to watch that.
Coltrane was lonely at that time. No, this is...
I don't know.
Well, what is it like to play with two upright basses and no drums? I mean, no.
No, there's drums. There's drums.
Not drums. You were saying two
bass players. We had Mark Proctor and Gary Peacock.
Exactly.
They got along real well. And I played drums behind them. We had Sonny Simmons and Prince Lachey, no piano.
See, and then...
Came off pretty good. People like it. They republished it, and DJ out here uses his theme song on his jazz show.
This is Stephanie Hayes and Sam Most, Wheelers and Dealers. Kent,
Oh, you found that one?
Kent Glenn, Gene Stone, Jim Ates,
Jim Eights.
Jim Ates.
At that time, her name was really Stephanie Eights. They were married.
So I got to ask you: Did you ever get a chance to jam with Pat Britt?
Oh hell yeah! Every Sunday at the Cat and Fiddle.
Tell me, I interviewed Pat. I found Pat, and he just it wasn't as excited as I was to find him. And we did an interview. Billy Martin called him a girl when he ran for the Oakland A's. But tell me about your relationship. You're playing with the great Pat Britt.
Oh hell, he was also part of the Kent Glenn entourage back then when I met him. And when he got the gig, Kent was playing with his band, okay? And it was Kent Glenn, I think Henry Franklin, and let's see, Lawrence, the drummer was at that time, Lawrence Marable, and Pat Britt, and Wilbur Brown. And they got the gig at the Cat and Fiddle on Sunset Strip in Hollywood in like 1985.
Wow.
And so Kent was still playing with the band, so he had me come over there and sit in. So I used to do that, and they changed drummers. They had, first it was Lawrence Marable, he left, and then a few other guys came in between, John Nolan and a couple of there were other guys that came in, but I always got to sit in a couple tunes every week. So finally, Clarence Johnson joined the band after all the guys, and he stayed with him for 26 years. Great drummer, good friend of mine. You ought to give him an interview too.
Yeah, I want to give him. I love that cat.